Hello, my name is Kayla DeWeese.
I'm Victor Yang.
I'm Osset Andrews, and this is
Stories of Our Lives
in Nature. Time to Slow Down and Reconnect by Dave. I grew up on a farm in the country. We didn't have the sweet snacks we do today. There were two favorite times of the year I clearly remember. In the spring, I would love to walk through the orchard and smell the sweet blossoms of oranges, apricots, apples, and plums. I would sit and watch the bees swirl through the air pollinating the trees. I would sit and listen to the drone of their wings as they would move from plant to plant. In the fall, I spent a lot of time in the orchard, walking through the trees and picking the fruits as they ripened. Many would have to be quality checked on the spot. I remember the juicy fruits dripping off my chin as I bit into the next one. The rest would go to the kitchen where I would make cobblers and pies. The whole family would gather in the kitchen to enjoy when the smell from the oven would permeate the house. As I grew up, I went to college and later work, and I lost the connection with the orchard and the bees buzzing through the air. A few years ago, I started reading about the demise of the bees and the potential impacts to our lives. Concerned, I followed the studies of the potential causes of the demise of the bees and what we could do to mitigate the impact. I started to reflect on my connection with the bees and how this is changing the world. Now that we are under threat, I find myself slowing down to reconnect with nature again. On these warm spring days, I love to walk through the backyard, sit, and listen again. The bees are still there buzzing through the blossoms. I take a deep breath, inhaling the sweet smell of the flowers. As I sit and watch the bees crawling on the flowers, I wonder if they can sense that we have now changed.
A Gift of Grace by Tracy. Last summer, as many of the past, we headed up to North Mormon Lake to trout fish Lower Lake Mary. 2 weeks prior, my husband and my son went up there and returned home bragging about how they had caught 40 to 50 fish, leading me to feel that they were overstating their experience. As my husband and I headed up, I was curious if they were expanding or possibly telling the truth. We parked the truck, got out, and pulled the kayaks down to the lake. I remember climbing into the kayak, rolling around the tall grass into the middle of the lake. The water was still. The smell of pine trees was strong, and I began to cast. A quick tug on my line, and I reel it in with a small trout on the end. Could they be right? I asked myself. Another long cast, dropping into the cool water, and another bite occurs. And no fish. As the sun began to set, and I would cast my lure, feel a tug, reel in a trout, time after time. It was a perfect storm. One was so big that when it came out to the top of the water, it jumped out and slapped me on the back as if to say, "Not this time, lady," then plunged to the bottom, breaking my line and stealing my lure. As the sun approached its final set, some clouds came in, producing a beautiful purple-orange glow. I remember I stopped fishing to simply sit and take in this glorious moment. With the smell of fish, pines, and fresh water, the sun began to set as ospreys flew above and the water slapped gently on the sides of the kayak. I felt in that very short moment that life had stopped to give me one simple gift of grace.
Passengers by Brandon. We walked among eclipses, trees that towered so far above us that they seemed celestial in nature, tempering the sunlight and filtering it for us, the passengers. We are no longer part of the ecosystem. We are simply proprietors of the residue it leaves behind. No longer pioneers, but passengers. We escaped gray-toned concentrations of man-made masses and settled for simplicity, not because the processes of nature are simple, but because we simply had no control over it. We didn't need to construct, manipulate, or alter it. We just needed to experience it. As passengers, the crunching of the last of winter's frost prattled about secrets that lovers spoke in the silence that was mistaken for privacy. The pine needles jeered about those who thought scale directly matches impact. The bark muttered old hymns of a forgotten age, weathered by trying to maintain lost words like tradition. The cold autumn air teased the beginnings of songs that never found an end, but don't quite get to be called infinite. We sat by a riverbank and watched the sun giggle gracefully on the waves. We walked among these familiar voices, desperately pretending that we were hearing them for the first time, like passengers. There's a reason why demeanor, temper, and behavior are synonymous with nature. It is the state of balance, not in the equalization of harmony, but in the consolidation of all parts that are present. Nature is within our nature. It is treated as a constant, but as most things that are perceived as such, it is not. Rather, it is mercurial, ever-changing and fickle. We choose to calibrate our voices to nature's unpredictable resonance. We didn't try to change its tune, nor silence any notes. We surrendered ourselves. We relinquished control. We did not see the views in front of us as an opportunity for vanity, but an opportunity to be humbled. We learned to know where we're going by looking at where we've been. We took a walk in the forest, and we at last took root. And I hold these hopes for passengers.
Thank you so much to everyone who sent in your stories and allowed us to share them today, and to everyone whose stories we didn't get to. We're hoping to get to yours in the future. But before I go, I just want to leave you with one final thought, that all these stories happened in nature, around trees and lakes and wildlife and all those things that are so wonderful to experience in person. Sadly, though, a lot of these environments are increasingly threatened by climate change and other human-related environmental impacts. The exciting part, though, is that every single individual has the power to change how we treat the environment and how we want to treat the environment in the future, and how we want to preserve this planet so that future generations have the chance to make memories in nature like the ones we shared today. So if you're interested in learning more about sustainability and how you can get involved, you can visit the Sustainable Tempe website, where we have our climate action plan and a lot of resources and information on how you can get involved as a community member. Because small actions can make big changes, first in your community and then hopefully the whole globe. Thank you so much for listening. Stay home, stay healthy, stay connected, and happy Earth Day.